Hello, friends. Welcome to the Big Talk. I'm Tricia Brouk. I am so excited about this season because during the last several months, my guests have been writing their big talks inside of the Big Talk Academy. And today we are going to dig deep into process, power of story, and why community is so important. I am super excited to welcome our featured guest today, the incredible Yasmina Hedhli. Yasmina, are you ready to drop in?
I am.
Yasmina is a transformational coach and speaker. She built her career in the not-for-profit sector and in her 20s was leading teams, running departments, and managing a multi-million-pound budget. Realizing her life was all about work, lacking purpose, and boring, she made some big changes, including traveling to all 7 continents, and she also supports professionals to get more out of their work and personal lives by helping them define who they are, what they want, and instilling empowering beliefs. Yasmina, take a minute to fill us on anything I missed, like 7 continents, and tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I love travel. It's one of my passions, and I hadn't been on a plane for about 4 years. I was really busy with work, with studying, and so I decided I would go on a solo trip. So my first solo trip took me to Dubai, where I did a skydive. And I was far more scared about being kidnapped or having a spider in my hotel room than I was about jumping out of a plane. But it was a fantastic experience, and it gave me the confidence to go and do more traveling. And Antarctica was one of my absolute highlights. So travel's a really big passion of mine.
That's incredible. Yasmina, why was Antarctica a highlight for you?
So it's a really strange destination to go to, and everyone in my life had questions like, what are you going to do when you get there? Are you going to eat fish every day? Are there polar bears? There aren't. They're at the other side. But it was great to actually be there and be around people who all shared this passion, who also had their own reasons for being there, and just to be so close to nature. I'm not the world's biggest animal lover, but I had some really up close encounters with whales, with penguins, and to really kind of be in their habitat was just an incredible experience. And I came away feeling so refreshed, renewed. I had no access to the outside world for about 10 days, which is quite rare to have that. And to begin with, I was worried about how am I going to live without Wi-Fi? But that quickly shifted to, I'm about to reconnect to Wi-Fi. I don't know that I want this. So that was a big part of it as well, just being completely disconnected and fully immersed in the experience.
That's incredible. How does putting yourself in places where it is completely unfamiliar add to who you are and what your story is?
I think it adds a lot, actually. I talk about how I'm more comfortable outside of my comfort zone. And of course, that depends on exactly how far I'm being pushed out of it. But I love being in new situations, having new experiences, exploring undiscovered territories. And it really adds to, I think, all of us as people. The more exposure you have to all the different things that life has to offer, the more rounded you become, I think.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's why my community is so important to me, because there's such a diverse group of speakers. They all have really unique ideas to talk about, and putting yourself in a community or in a culture that is different from you only elevates you. And I just love that you spent so much time traveling as you were finding your purpose, as you were learning how to empower yourself. Can you share a little bit more about your story, Yasmina?
Yes, as you might tell from my accent, I am from the UK. I'm actually from London, which is where I was raised and have spent my whole life. you touched on some of my background there in terms of the travel, and it was very much a journey of self-discovery. I was very ambitious in my career, very driven, and I progressed very quickly, but then realized that it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. So I had my own journey of self-discovery, really tapping into what matters to me. And so now that's what I help other people to do. I'm really passionate about helping people build their confidence and instilling beliefs that serve us all better. Ultimately, the way we experience the world, how we interact with people, our relationships, everything comes down to what we believe about ourselves and the world around us. So I'm really passionate about helping people to form better beliefs that serve them well and get them to ultimately where they want to be.
This is so powerful. And I had the privilege of spending 12 weeks with you through the Big Talk Academy and watch your progression. And it was so wonderful to watch you step into complete vulnerability while still being in a role of mentorship to your clients and to your community and to the Big Talk Academy community as well. I mean, you really mentored many of the community members along the way by being vulnerable. Can you talk a little bit about that progression and that part of your story?
Yeah, so I'm a very private person, and I've done lots of speaking over the years, but to begin with, it was all very, very functional, very technical, very factual. So sharing more of myself has been a big challenge. And, I joke that I'd love to be rich and anonymous. I have no desire for fame. So putting myself out there, sharing really personal things isn't something that comes naturally. But last year, for example, I had some real health challenges and it just came out of nowhere. And it's something, the condition I was dealing with is something lots of women actually have. And I became quite vulnerable around then, sharing what I was going through. And I had some really unexpected messages about women who'd kind of seen what I'd been through and then decided to speak to a doctor and, kind of had their own journeys following from there. And that made me realize, wow, just getting over this whole, what will people think? Oh, I don't want to share this part of myself. Actually getting over that really does help people. I wouldn't go as far as to say I've saved anyone's lives, but I've had messages where people have taken real action, discovered that they do have underlying conditions, and then, been able to, proceed positively as a result of taking action. So for me, that was a real turning point. And that's not to say it cured me of my fear of being truly seen for who I am. That's always going to be there to one extent or another. But within the Big Talk Academy, having a supportive community and being able to say, oh, I've just shared this and now I'm having vulnerability hangover and I'm not sure if I want to be sharing in this way. And just hearing from other people that they were having similar experiences. I think shared experience in particular is so powerful. Someone has experienced everything we have experienced at some point in time, but we carry these feelings of, oh, it's only me, no one else would understand, no one else has gone through this. But when you have people on the same journey as you, someone's going to be experiencing it, and it really helps to know I'm not alone in this. There are other people here who are going through the same thing. And by being the voice, by sharing all of that, you're giving other people permission to share theirs or to just be okay with what they're going through. Because again, we carry so much that we don't talk about. And just knowing that someone else is experiencing it can really be life-changing for someone else.
I agree completely, Yasmina. And I think you touched on something that's very unique to our time in history, which is it's in early August. We are still very much in a global pandemic, and every single human being on the planet is having a shared experience. And if anyone watching or listening thinks for a second that we are not connected, think about what's happening right now. We are all connected.
Absolutely.
You're absolutely right. When you share your experience, there is someone out there who will benefit from hearing it. I'd love to know, Yasmina, how important community was when you became vulnerable and what that was like and how you're going to move forward in terms of creating communities, being more available to communities, because I know you're an introvert.
Mm-hmm. Community was absolutely core to the whole experience. There was no way I could have foreseen how key and how big a part of the whole thing it would be. It's all relatively fresh. We only finished a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still in regular contact with some of the friends I've made through the Big Talk Academy. And naturally in any group there's always people you resonate with more, people you kind of naturally gravitate towards. And just being able to post in the group and knowing that someone would answer, there are some communities where you could share vulnerably and then there's crickets, no one responds. And in some ways, I think that can be worse. You want to feel like, okay, I've opened up, I've been heard. I'm not just kind of opening up and no one's there to respond. So having responses, being able to contribute to other people's journey as well, because I think coming from the world of coaching and mentoring, a lot of people go into these things wanting to make a difference to others, but you don't realize sometimes how much helping others helps you. So even being able to contribute to other people's journeys, that in itself is such a gift. So that was a big part of the community element. And then as we got closer to the showcase and giving our talks, I was in a trio with two other ladies, and it was great to just be able to give each other additional support, get to know each other more. So going forward, community will definitely be a much bigger part of what I do. And it's very much a thought process at the moment around, what I know, what I value, I know what matters to me, but it's how do I share that? How do I create something that will be really of value to people? But I feel so committed to that now in a way that I wasn't before. It wasn't really on my radar in this kind of way.
I'm so happy to hear that, Yasmina, because what you have to say matters and it's so important. And you're so eloquent in how you communicate, and you're so mindful and thoughtful in how you write big talks. We had the opportunity to work one-on-one together during the process, and I was able to see you transform. I would love for you to share with the audience a little bit more about the importance for you of speaking on a big stage now.
Okay, so speaking has always been a love of mine, and I want to think more about how I share more of what I have to say with the world. So big stages, absolutely. I definitely have dreams and ambitions in that respect. Looking at the process we followed, the talk I ended up with was not the talk I thought I'd do. And I think even as far as halfway through the process, that was not my intention to talk about that topic. It hadn't really, it was a process of getting to that point. So it's really opened my eyes to the fact that actually there's so much more in me, so much more I want to share, so much more I want to really create. So going forward, I want to be able to share my ideas more frequently, and really practice what I've learned a lot more, because taking the stage is a gift. And it's a real opportunity to impact the world. And I think now with lockdown, as you said, the global pandemic, it's really shown how much we do crave connection. And in some ways, I feel more connected than ever. So considering now, I seem to spend a lot of time talking to people in the States, and I couldn't say that 3 months ago. So really looking at how we can forge these connections and I guess just make the most of what we've learned during this time. You can view it as a really negative time, but lots of positive things have come out of it. So really, really continuing those learnings and implementing them.
And being open to what's possible. You were saying that through the journey of the Big Talk Academy, which is 12 weeks, midway through is when you decided to pivot and to start talking about something else. I would love for you to talk to our listeners and our audience about how that happened and what that idea became for you.
Yeah, so I was really daunted at the start. We were told that we'd come up with 100 ideas, and I had real question marks in my mind about my ability to do that. And I exceeded it by far, and I really enjoyed the process. And then I was kind of devastated when we were told we then had to distill those ideas right down to five. But again, I enjoyed the process of doing that. It was nowhere near as hard as it sounded due to the way you broke it down for us. So at that point, I had six ideas, and one was around identity, and it was the one that scared me the most. So I knew it was the one I had to go with. And so it was very generally about identity. You know, there was so many directions I can go in. You know, identity is so layered anyway. So it was a real process of looking at my identity. You know, what are the different elements to me? How do I identify as a person? What's my relationship with these different elements to myself? And then really just through a process of exploration, speaking to people, research, refining my idea, somehow, and actually I'm not quite sure how in this moment, I ended up on the topic of code switching and how people change or hide or alter parts of themselves to fit into different social settings. And that then opened a whole new world for me, and it got me to reflect on my experiences. It was very topical in terms of some of what's been happening in the world. And it was just something I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed delving deeper into it. And something that's been common with a lot of the speaking I've done since being more vulnerable and sharing more of myself is the process of crafting a talk. It's actually helped me process some of my own experiences, and that is so valuable. And being able to arrive at conclusions, not just kind of, you know, emotional reactions, you know, actual solid conclusions about myself, my experiences, the experiences of others, that was really valuable. So yeah, so what I ended up with was not where I started off. I couldn't have guessed that I'd end up with that, but that in itself is one of my favorite things that came out of this. Again, this idea that, wow, I've got ideas cooking away inside of me, and I've got no idea that they're even in there. So I love that kind of element of not knowing, and it's kind of the untapped wisdom that we all have within us.
I love that you're saying this. And for our listeners and our audience, if you think you have an idea, go with it, but trust that there's other things percolating in there. And that when you allow yourself the creativity to go deeper and to be vulnerable and to be willing to not be right or good or perfect, all of a sudden, all of these new thoughts and ideas come forward. I'd love for you to share more about what you learned about yourself during this process. It sounds like you learned a whole bunch of new ideas. What else, Yasmina?
I would say the biggest shift for me happened in the second week when we were generating these ideas. And that, I think any time in life when you achieve something that you didn't think was possible, that in itself is a powerful experience because it opens your mind to, wow, what else can I do? So coming up with all of those ideas, even the silly ones, even, you know, you were very clear with us, there's no judgment. Don't judge yourself. There's no such thing as a bad idea. And I came up with some really weird and random things that actually still have value if they were kind of massaged a bit. So that was super, super valuable to me. I think as well, the ability to connect to people who are so far removed from me, or at least appear to be. You know, building relationships is something I enjoy, I value anyway, but being able to connect so deeply with people who are in completely different time zones, from completely different backgrounds, and as part of that, actually, I think this idea of bringing my full self, and I know that's something we talked about before, and I really underestimated the importance of that. And I think actually having that from the early stage of the journey also led me to go in the direction I did with my talk, because it really introduced this idea of being able to bring to be your whole self. And then I went down the rabbit hole of, exploring what happens when people aren't their whole self. What's the harm? What's the danger? So that really helped to kind of cultivate the talk as well. And I think overall, just trusting in the process. I'm the kind of person, I want to know everything up front. I don't want to, just kind of put my whole faith in you and just trust that I'll arrive at the end. I want to know where we're going and how we're getting there. But actually, I feel that I fully gave myself to this process. I fully committed and I just, went with it. So for me, that was a real lesson as well, and something I want to carry forward, just trusting in the process, trusting that generally in life, wherever I am right now, that's where I'm meant to be. And this was a nice, safe way to experience that.
I'm so glad to hear that. And this is something that I consciously made happen within the academy, which is at week 2, everyone's kind of floundering and wondering why I'm asking you to come up with 100 ideas and how is that possible? And stepping back and observing you all going through the same thing at the same time and how you supported one another during that process was invaluable to me, because I know that process works. When I'm in a room with an actor, if I get in their way too soon, they will get locked into an idea. They will get locked into a way of being that prevents them from going past what's actually possible. And I'm so glad that you're willing now to use this process going forward in all of your work, because I know that you are going to be showing up for your clients in a completely new way. Because when we show up prepared with how it's going to go, we potentially prevent other possibilities. So I think it's so wise what you're saying, and I'm super excited that you're going to be able to apply this going forward. How else, Yasmina, are you going to leverage this experience for your business?
Yeah, so I think so much of this is about being brave, being courageous, and there are things that I have maybe wanted to speak about but held back on. So, my talk touched on inclusion, equity. These are things that are deeply important to me. And, throughout my career, I've always challenged where I've not seen these things or where I've seen injustices, but that hasn't been something that I've necessarily I guess it's been harder to follow through in terms of being self-employed and from a business sense, but it's really made me think about, how do I do that more going forward? How do I build that more into, not so much into my business, but how do I encourage others to do it? Because I have been brave, I have been bold, I have done all of these things, but actually, how do I harness that and encourage and empower others to do the same? Because speaking isn't just about being on the stage. We all have platforms these days, all of us, and it's a big part of what I want to do, is helping others actually to use their voice for good, because I think all of us want to on some level, but maybe we're not in the right environment. Maybe we don't know how. Maybe we've tried and been pushed back and now we're scared. So that's something I very much want to look at doing, how I can empower others to use their voices and to really step into their own power.
Amazing. And we're going to make sure everyone can get in touch with you, so anybody who wants support from you around stepping into their own voices can connect with you, Yasmina. Let's talk for a second about what most surprised you about being so intentional about the writing process during the Big Talk Academy.
Yeah, so I quickly realized, okay, generating ideas is not my issue. That's fine. It's just knowing how to access them. I've got a big check mark for that now. The real challenge for me was around making a decision and committing to it. And that was hands down the hardest thing. And having the opportunity to perform in the virtual showcase meant that I had to say what my idea was. And once I said it, I committed to it, and it just had to happen. So for me, that was key. I think if I hadn't taken part in the virtual showcase, I'd probably be saying now, I haven't decided. So having the discipline around that was really important. And actually, once I knew what I was going to do, it was so exciting. From that point, I'd enjoyed everything up until that point, but from then it really turned up a notch, and it was a great process of writing the talk, refining it, debating over which bits to take out because it was too long, then realizing there's this really important concept that I want to throw in. How do I do that? How do I make it work and flow? I loved it. I absolutely loved it. There are so many things in life. Well, let me say this. I think in life, it's really important to enjoy the journey as much as the destination. We can work so hard for something, and then when we get it, we just, it's over in a minute. And for me, the talk itself was 8 minutes. I might have gone over by 20 seconds or so, but the talk was relatively short. It was really the journey leading up to it that was the bulk of the experience. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Every challenge that came up was great to overcome.
And for our listeners out there, anybody who goes to the YouTube channel, The Big Talk with Tricia Brouk, you'll be able to see Yasmina's talk. And I share with you that because she's in the UK, everyone who was across the country, across the world, I gave them the option of submitting a video so that they could be in their jammies with the virtual showcase, which happened in the late afternoon in New York City. And Yasmina sent in a video as per requested, and then I encouraged her to do it live. And you performed the talk live in real time, and it was so powerful to see you step into that moment and really take another risk, jump out of another plane, if you will.
Yeah, and I loved it. I really loved it. I actually found the process of pre-recording it so stressful because, there were unlimited takes, and, even when it was 99% okay, I could do it again and maybe be even better. I just found it so stressful, if I'm honest. But doing it live, I didn't realize up until that point how much energy you can feel just being on the other side of the camera, knowing that people are there, knowing that people are engaged. It was so powerful, and I'm so glad and thankful that I did it live. And it felt so different. Having done it both ways, having done it pre-recorded and actually doing it live, the live for me felt so much more better. More better, that doesn't sound right. It felt so much better. It felt amazing, and I really did feel the energy, and just being there in real time, having people commenting, it was magical. So I would encourage anyone, if you have the opportunity to do a talk and there's an option to do it live or pre-recorded, if you can possibly do it live, for me, that would be the definite way to go.
That's such great advice. And for everyone watching and listening, we're in a virtual world right now. And although I love being in the theater, we can create an intimate exchange through video. We really can, through Zoom. So I encourage everyone who has the desire to talk to trust that virtual stages can be as important as a physical stage.
Yeah. And just to say, I had a friend at the showcase, and her feedback was just off the charts. She absolutely loved it. She came predominantly because I'm her friend and she wanted to support me, but she loved all of the speakers and she was so blown away by it. So I think if people have any doubts of the impact of doing things virtually, you can, as a speaker, you can absolutely feel the energy. You absolutely feel, I felt the same as when I've done talks on stage when I did it live. So I don't think you necessarily lose that element of it.
Absolutely. Yasmina, how has your view of yourself changed by showing up so fully in the Big Talk Academy?
I think more than anything, it's really tapping into the limitless possibilities. And again, I am so excited by this knowledge that I have ideas inside me that I don't even know are there. I have no idea what I'm going to be speaking about 3 months from now. I know it will be great. I know it will be impactful. And for me, that is so exciting, just not knowing where this is going to take me, and how many amazing directions I can go in. So for me, I would say that's the key takeaway, this knowledge that I have so much more inside me. You know, I touched on identity. I went in a particular direction. There's so much more within that topic I want to explore. And that's just one topic. There are so many more. So it's that excitement and that hunger for more, to explore more and to share more, and ultimately have an even bigger impact.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. You are going to have massive impact. I want to thank you, Yasmina, for being a featured guest today on The Big Talk. Where can our listeners and our viewers get in touch with you?
So my website is www.livingyourbestlife.co.uk. And I'm also on Instagram or LinkedIn. So Instagram, my handle is Yasmina Speaks, and LinkedIn is just under my full name.
And we will put all of this in the show notes. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed the Big Talk. And if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Check out the next episode. And remember, live your truth, be your authentic self, and drop in. I hope that you will start sharing your powerful story today, and be sure to subscribe and click on that notification bell so that you get access to my newest and latest videos. And I really appreciate that you are here and will always respond to the comments. Big love.